Yeah, today during the morning we are at the Parklands Sports Club. And of course here I meet the legendary Prince Mukuka. He's been there, done that in squash. All these stars that you think talking about squash, he has done that, and actually we celebrate him. And today we joined him when he's coaching the team to the Commonwealth Games. And he's doing the so just continue.
Tighter, keep it tight, straight.
That was good, Prince. You know
Yes.
you have been playing for so long.
Yes, yes,
You
yes.
haven't never shared your story.
Yes.
Today is the best day to share your story.
Yes.
Yeah, tell me about your story. How did it all start?
Well, I started when I was 4 years old. I used to play with my siblings. I never took squash very seriously. I was more into tennis. So what happened was, where I came from, we used to have the sports recreation, whereby the squash courts were just next to the tennis courts. So what used to happen was, whenever it's raining, we used to run to the squash courts to play with tennis rackets. So yeah, that is how I picked it up, together with my siblings, but I never wanted to be playing with them because they were too good. And you know, being a boy, you don't want to be losing from the girls. So that is exactly what happened.
Yeah, most people always ask me, are you a Kenyan? Are you a citizen? I've met you here for quite a long time. So
Well, I've lived here for quite some time. Then at some point I had to go to England. That is where I did all my coaching courses. I played professional squash from there. Then I became Kenyan #1 for 8 years. I was an 8-time champion. Yeah, that's what happened. But within that, I also used to travel to so many countries to compete. And actually my first international tournament that I won was in Nigeria. Yeah, I won $5,000. I didn't expect it. Yeah, but it happened. Actually, I won that twice. Then I won also in Malawi, about $3,000. I've won Malawi Open 3 times. I've won Nigerian Open 2 times. Then I won Namibian Open 2 times as well.
briefly take us through the events that you remember most memorable.
Well, yeah, actually the best tournament ever that I played in Kenya was against Lazarus Chirufya, was also a Zambian player. That time I just came from England and I played in the finals against him. Actually, nobody expected me to reach the finals because by then the Zambians were already too strong. But you know, I had to go to England. That is where I was trained. So I played Lazarus and I lost in the finals. That was actually my best in Kenya.
The
But
worst. The worst? I'm sure you have your worst.
well, that one I cannot forget, and I keep actually telling even my students, never ever underestimate anyone, regardless who you are. No matter what, even if you're #1. There's a time I was playing a tournament. You know, when you're still young, your mind is young. I was just fooling around playing somebody else. Little did I know the game was already 2-love up. I started fighting. I got back to 2-0, 2 each actually. But you see now, I used a lot of energy. So in the last one, I just started making silly mistakes and I lost. From that, I learned a very big lesson out of that. So it's what it is. You cannot just underestimate anyone because you're good and all that, yeah. If you have to win, you have to win. You have to do it.
Of course, you started as an amateur before you went up there. How was
Yes.
the transition and what do you remember?
Wow. Actually, funny enough, you know, for me, it didn't also take too long to learn how to play squash because I used to have, my late uncle was working in the army, was a general in the army. I used to play with him every day, Monday to Friday in the morning at 6 in the morning. And then there was this Zambian #1. He was living in my city, Ernest. He was older than me. He used to encourage me. Sometimes he could play with me, but I was always running away. So what I used to do is I could tell him, okay, since you're beating me in squash, you come to tennis. Then when he comes to tennis, I thrash him because I was also #1 in tennis. Actually, tennis was my main sport. Yeah, there's even a time I got a scholarship to go to the US when I was like 15 years old. But that didn't happen. The person who was sponsoring me died, and it all ended there. That is when I shifted now to squash. Yeah, then from there, we used to have our coaches who are employed by the copper mines. So he picked up and he started coaching me slowly, until I came back now, until I came to Kenya. That is when I picked it up. Then from me also, I got someone who said, I think you have a lot of potential. If I send you abroad, you are going to do better. And that is how he ended up sponsoring me and all that.
How did you fare abroad as a professional?
Well, for the first 6 months, I nearly stopped because everywhere I was playing, I was losing. Everything I was doing, it was not working. Yeah, including universities. When I go to play universities, I was losing, so I nearly gave up. But after some time, I had a good coach. Actually, he's Scottish, but he was based in England. So he started encouraging me, and I was the only black. He started talking to me nicely, enrolled me in leagues, intercounties, yeah. And sometimes I used to go to Denmark to play leagues, German, so he could send me there with other coaches. And luckily, there was also another friend of mine. We grew up together in the juniors. He was Zimbabwe #1. He was in the same camp. So now that made me settle now. He started giving me examples of how JC started and stuff like that. Then from there, I picked it up and I started playing the A division. Okay, like the one I was talking about, the first one when I went to Nigeria. It was just so amazing that none of the spectators was supporting me. But I cannot say they are biased to what. No. I find that to be very good. You know, you need to learn to support your own people. Yeah, it was just amazing. And that made me think and realize that I have a very strong mentality. And you know, squash, 95% is the mental, 5% is the fitness. That is how it is. You have to be very clever for you to be a good squash player. It doesn't just work like that. You have to be very clever. You have to learn to be humble. You have to learn to be calm whenever you are playing. Yeah, and you know what matters most is the person you are playing with, not the spectator. So I decided, I think the only thing I should do here now is to focus on my opponent, not the spectators. Yeah.
And how was it transitional from a player to a coach? How was it, and why did you decide to
Okay.
become a coach?
What happened was, I wouldn't say that I never thought of becoming the coach. The person who was sponsoring me told me one thing, that I don't need anything from you. The only thing I need from you to pay back is you have to start coaching the juniors. Now that I'm sending you abroad, you have to do all the coaching coaches, and I'm going to pay for them. And he paid for that. So when I came back and I started coaching the juniors, and that is how I started from there.
And of course, that is why everybody, when you hear about Prince Mukuka,
Yes.
you know who Prince Mukuka is associated with coach, and he has brought so many young, talented Kenyans promoting them in that game. Tell me about it.
Yeah, and also within that, I've also produced so many players in Kenya, both the juniors and the senior level. And every time when we have Commonwealth, there must be 1 or 2 of my students traveling for Commonwealth. And that makes me happy. Even at the junior level, I've produced so many. And apparently we lost one of the boys who was very, very talented, and I could see him going very, very far. It's just sad that he had to cut his life short, but what to say? May his soul rest in peace. It happened. That boy was very talented. I remember we went to France to play World Championship, and he was playing former senior world #1. And he told me, he was sitting next to me, and he told me in his own words that regardless who he is, I'm going to give him my best and I'm going to beat him. Okay, fine, he didn't beat him, but he played an amazing game. Actually, the first game, he nearly won. And you know, I could see that this boy has a lot of talent. But you see, all in all, we don't just need one player like that. We need so many players, yeah. But the only way now we can have those players, we need to try and make sure that we have our good tournaments, our local tournaments, and also expose them to also international tournaments. Because you see what happens, as much as Prince can coach them here, for as long as they are not exposed, they cannot improve. That's exactly what happens. So for one to be good, you have to be exposed so that you understand that this is where my level is. Yeah.
It brings me to another aspect of the so-called small sports. They are not so-called small sports. When you talk about racket games, actually, they are medal prospects, and you can agree with me as we head towards the Commonwealth Games.
You see, with squash, it's not so popular. Maybe I would say it's not popular in Kenya, simply because not many people understand it. But all in all, it's because it's not a big spectator sport. You see, like this gallery, you cannot accommodate more than 300 people. So even when you look at sponsors, sometimes they're like, what are we going to benefit? What are the mileages? Are we, things like that. So when you come to tennis, there are so many people that you can even put it on the center court. But when you go to places like Egypt, England, US, they have the center court. So now that center court is able to accommodate more than 3,000 spectators, because you see, it's a movable squash court, not the way we have these ones. You can even put it in the stadium, in a shopping mall, anywhere. So you see, like now, this stadium that was built somewhere in Langata, they should have maybe done that. They should have put one center court there. It's removable. You can move it at any single time. Yeah, it's made of all glass.
So what else should we do to promote this game in the country? Because maybe it is being viewed as elitist.
Is to try and expose the players and put them in so many international tournaments, just the same way the athletes are. And that's what I was telling you. You know, I also do a lot of road cycling. I have seen those guys of cycling, wherever they are, the 18 boys, those guys of Saucy, and these other guys, they have so much talent, but there's no support. That one I cannot lie to. There's so much talent. Yeah, there's another boy who's being trained by Kinja. He's called Jordan. Yeah, he went to Netherlands with another guy called Kalaya. So when he went to Netherlands, he went to compete. And just because he's short and what everybody underestimated him, and they were, Netherlands usually is flattish. So they had gone to a certain area where they were doing some climbs and all that. He was left by like 3 kilometers. He had to catch up and left those guys and won the summit. Nobody expected that. And that's why I said earlier, in sports, it's very difficult for you to determine who's going to be the champion on that. For as long as every sport is being supported, trust me, they can go very far. There's so much talent in sports in Kenya, so much.
So what can you tell the young enthusiasts out there? Maybe they see this game and they don't know how to get in. How can they get into the sport, and what are the benefits of playing squash?
Well, it's always good to start sports as from the grassroots. You need to start from the juniors, because to be honest with you, it doesn't make sense of me starting someone at the age of 25 and they want to become champions. That is wasting time. When you have a child, you have a long-term plan for them. You just have to make sure that there's a good junior program. Yeah. Even these champions here that is Roger Federer, is so-and-so, they started when they were young. By the time you're hearing that is Roger Federer. Look at even this Angela Okitoy. She's being coached by my friend. I saw when she was a little kid. Yeah, you see now by the time she reached 27, 28, she'll be very far. But that cannot happen when she's living in Kenya. No, and that's what I'm saying. She needs to be exposed. So the only thing now she needs to do for her to go to another level is to go to a different country and train there, because there are so many people who are actually better than her. That's the only way she can progress. Otherwise, just staying in Kenya, she goes, she comes back, she'll get stagnated. No matter who you are, it's always good to be humble. And also, if you're a champion, don't be greedy. It's always good to give back to other people, learn to talk to people, encourage them, inspire them as much as you can. And also, as a coach, I don't just train my players, I also mentor them in so many different ways, and not just in sports.
For every training to be effective, you have to dedicate your hours. It takes a lot of patience, hard work, discipline, and of course a passion. And Prince Mukuka has all that. Tell me about your training and what made you tick.
Before I left for Europe, I used to be in graphics college, because my classes were starting very early in the morning. This is real, I used to train from 02 a.m. to 05 a.m. at Nairobi Club. I used to get the keys because I was a member there. I used to train for 4 to 5 hours. And I could make sure that 2 hours is just fitness, no phone, nothing that could distract me. So after doing my fitness training, then I started doing the ball work. It also depends on what kind of exercise I have to do on that particular day. I used to have my own training schedule that I had, and I used to train 5 times a week. Saturday, Sunday, I was just resting, maybe have some few coachings here and there.
Well, Prince Mukuka, we salute you for the work.
Thanks so much. Thanks so
for
much.
so many years, we've watched you on the tennis courts or the squash courts, and you have done an amazing job.
Thank you.
So for those who, when you hear about squash and tennis, you think about Prince Mukuka. He's associated with them because he has brought up so many talented players who've become big names in the country in both sports. So Amfa, I'm sure you do also. And back to you from Game On. This has been the Ace.